Tapos of Jackro is more than just a point of sale. They've been a leading innovator in cinema software for 30 years and counting. In that time, they've learned that a good supplier needs to be a good partner. That's why their long-standing Tapos customer promise is to share regular upgrades with all their partners, always at no additional cost. Discover why hundreds of cinemas, circuits, and family entertainment centers around the world trust Tapos for seamless ticketing, sophisticated food and beverage features, inbuilt customer relationship management, and much more. During CinemaCon 2026, come see the Tapos team at booth 821 in the Julius Ballroom, or book a demo at any time via the link at taposapp.com.
70% of respondents in our recent GCF consumer survey indicated that there's a movie they're excited to see this year, which is up 4 percentage points from last year.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition, here on our Monday episode of our daily CinemaCon podcast series brought to you by Tapos with support from Irwin and Cube. In today's episode, we've got a special feature interview with Sean Gamble, CEO of Cinemark and the chairman of the Global Cinema Federation. That is coming up in the second half of this episode. We've got a sponsor interview with Jack Powers from Irwin, the seating manufacturer. That is coming up right after our news segment. And to start things off here in our first morning in Vegas, we've got our friend and colleague Chris Randleman, Chief Revenue Officer over at Flix Brewhouse and member of our forecasting committee, looking at every major wide release coming out in the next 12 months and providing insights on where these movies could land. Chris is going to join me and Rebecca Pauley to go over the CinemaCon studio wish list, looking at all the studio presentations that are going on this week and just putting on what the stakes are, I think, for each studio, with obviously the caveat that probably one of these won't make it till next year. That's the cliffhanger I'll leave you with. But let's start off with the good news. Chris, we're coming off, I think it's fair to say, an overperformance in Q1. And I know in our forecasting committee, you tend to be probably one of the most optimistic members and fact-based. There's usually your numbers come with a lot of science and data behind them to support those stances. You think this is going to be a very competitive year. How do you take stock of a Q1 that came in 25% ahead of last year's Q1?
No, it was a fantastic result. As you mentioned, I'm a little bit more optimistic sometimes than others have been. So I was expecting something around this level. But even at this level, it's very nice to see. It's a great start to the year for the industry, in a year that we're hoping that we can get back to those pre-COVID normal grosses that we used to see above $10 billion on the domestic market. So I think it's a great first quarter for us to get there.
So bright days ahead here in the industry. And Rebecca, we've got a packed schedule here for day one of CinemaCon. What's on tap for our listeners, either here in Vegas with us or following along at home?
So our first bit of programming for Monday is a new event for 2026. It's part of the CinemaCon educational programming track. Track 1, Audiences and Innovation. From 9 to 9:45 a.m., we have Reclaiming Cultural Moments Locally and Globally, Winning in an Era of Attention Warfare, with the moderator, Daniel Loria of Box Office Pro. So I'll be at that one. Then from 10 to 10:45, Understanding 2026 Audiences, Gen Z and Emerging Trends. 11 to 11:45, Optimizing the Cinema Experience, a showcase of world-class cinema designs. And then running parallel to that Audiences and Innovation track is a food and beverage track starting at 9. There we have Building the Next Generation of Food and Beverage Leaders. 10, now showing the latest in food and beverage innovation. 11, reimagining the lobby and concession experience. Track 3 is tech-oriented. We have 9 a.m. immersive tech transforming theaters. 10, practical AI for streamlined theater operations. Check back into this podcast series on Friday for a detailed recap of that. And then 11, leveraging technology to engage with audiences. So this is the first time CinemaCon has done sort of that 3-track educational focus on Monday morning. It's a lot to see, a busy day. After lunch, we have another new event, the CinemaCon Film Showcase, where a couple of smaller distributors, namely Angel Studios, Sony Pictures Classic, and Studio Canal, are going to have the chance to show off their upcoming slate to exhibitors, really kind of CinemaCon putting their money where their mouth is in terms of giving time to some of these smaller distributors in order to kind of help cinemas build up a variety of programming. There is a trade show networking reception starting at 3:30. Go for the food. I always will. And then we close things out at 6:30 in the Coliseum with the opening night presentation from Sony Pictures. So yeah, it's going to be a crowded, packed day.
It's going to be a packed day indeed. And let's start with that Sony presentation as we go over our CinemaCon studio wish list, going over all the titles that we're expecting to see, the biggest questions we have from each studio in chronological order, opening here with Sony. Is it just me, or is this going to be a really big CinemaCon from Sony that really has to show us something? Because last year, their highest grossing title was an anime movie, which is great for anime, but probably not something any of us would have predicted at this point in 2025.
No, it was definitely a light presentation from them last year. To your point, they had to show off things coming out in 2028 and pulled that new Beatles cast on the stage for a big announcement. So it was nice to see that. But yeah, that's very far off in the future still. Even at this CinemaCon, it would be far off in the future. But yeah, they have a much better slate this year. You've got Spider-Man Brand New Day to talk about. I think Resident Evil is going to be one of the big focuses on there from Zach Kreger. I think that's going to be a big focus for them. They've got some other smaller titles thrown in there like Archangel and The Social Reckoning. But then you get into Jumanji 3 in December. And, from there, they've got some big stuff for the following year. And Legend of Zelda on May 2027. We got the Spider-Verse movie that you mentioned. But that's their big kind of kickoff. I think for an opening for them, for an opening night, that's enough to talk about. And they can keep building their slate as they go and revamping what they're doing there.
Now, that Spider-Man trailer has gotten record views. Of course, we remember the last time we had a live-action Spider-Man movie coming out after CinemaCon was a reveal of the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, which created tremendous fanfare. What's the one title this year, Chris, that you think Sony needs to give the most attention to? What really needs a strong push at this event for it to get on the radar of you guys at exhibition?
I think Resident Evil is a very important one for them. Spider-Man is a no-brainer, but I think Resident Evil is a nice big swing in September that could really pay off for them, coming off of Weapon success for Zach Kreger. Yeah, I mean, that is the biggest one. I guess 1A, which is further off because it probably next CinemaCon would cover that somewhat. But you need the big kickoff to Legend of Zelda. I think showing some stuff from that, getting that out there, because that could be a massive movie for them. And, with Wes Ball directing that, who's done very well with other films, including Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I think that one is a huge focus for them as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a big nostalgia play for Gen Z, just across the generations. I know so many people are excited about that one. I'm pumped for Resident Evil. I mean, especially thinking back of the last few Septembers we've had. Have fallen, I think, below everyone's hopes. So hopefully we can have a winner there in that September corridor this year.
This is the same filmmaker that delivered Weapons last year. He's working with an IP. We're talking about Zach Kreger. He's working with a major IP. I think this is one of those movies that has a big fan community that's outspoken. I think maybe the noise on the internet might overshadow the reality of what the movie is, whether it's good or bad.
I mean, the Resident Evil franchise is used to bad movies, though. I mean, it's not like...
I think that fan base is very attached to them, to be completely fair. I agree with you. I'm not a fan of that. I don't know how many movies there were a decade plus ago, right? But that is a very vocal fan base of both the video games and separately the movie series. So you're right. I think that's going to be a big title. I think we're all curious to see what we learn at CinemaCon, because when I first found out about Weapons a year ago at this event, it immediately shot up to the top of my list of movies I had no idea about that I wanted to see immediately. Barbarian was a massive swing. I didn't know if Krieger could come back with a movie like that would bring in that sort of excitement. He amped it up with Weapons. Can you do the same with an IP? Can you take the same sort of risks, the same tonal shifts when you're working within a franchise model? That's going to be the big question I have, and I agree with you guys. I think that's a title not only that needs the biggest push from Sony, but the one that I'm most looking forward to hearing more about. Now, when we talk about box office potential here, we're talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out at the end of July. But what are some dark horses in this slate, Chris, that you believe really have to make a big effort this year?
I think Jumanji 3, even though that's not really a dark horse, but given the two films overshadowing it in that month, it has become a dark horse on some level when you've got Avengers, Doomsday, and Dune Part 3 overshadowing you. Kind of the expectations go down. I like the move that they made to put that on Christmas Day, sort of replicating what they did with that Anaconda last year and on some level. And I think that works out for them because now instead of running into a brick wall, it now has an entire month and a half or so to play after that and through those holiday grosses. So I think that one needs to perform for them. I would also say that, again, their slate so far is still not very big, or at least their announced slate. I'm hoping for some surprise announcement that we get from them. The other one, a sleeper, would be The Nightingale, with Dakota and Elle Fanning. That one, has been gestating for a long time. They finally have been able to shoot that one. That would be nice to see a small success from them there. And then most of their titles after that, Helldivers later in the year, Buds in December of 27, those are just kind of getting off the ground or, not as much expectations. And then, rolls into the Beatles where let's see if the four movies in 1 month works. It's just being a theater operator and owner. I can tell you when I have 8 and 9 screens, I don't know how I'm going to get all 4 movies to play for an entire month on screen, but let's see what they've got up their sleeve and what the actual release pattern looks like when it comes to it.
That's the big question here. How do you make 4 movies from the same studio, all with huge earning potential, coexist within the same month? I'm not sure if they're going to budge on the distribution plans on this at all. But like you, I think the one thing that we all want to learn more about, even though it's not pressing for them to do so right now, is the release plan for the Beatles movie. Because everything else for the Beatles movies, all 4 of them, sounds like a great idea. It's just that huge swing of getting 4 of these massive titles out simultaneously that I think gets a lot of folks nervous.
It's just a logistical problem. It really is. Like if you have theaters and you don't have that many screens, or you're not a big Cineplex with 14 screens, 16 screens, 20 screens, you got an 8 or even 10 screen theater to put 4 movies from the same studio, same subject matter in every month. I tend to hope that they think as this approaches, maybe 1 1/4 is a better plan for them. But that's what I would do personally. I would do 1 1/4 and space it out a little bit.
1 1/4 sounds like you can get a movie with a theatrical release, promote your next theatrical release the following quarter, and use that new release to piggyback the streaming debut of the one you released 90 days ago. And you do that all year. And you're in a situation where you can own an entire year's worth of movies, both at home and in theaters. But then again, what do we know, right?
Exactly. Let's see what they'll do.
We'll see how this all ends up. Rebecca, in terms of like the big surprise you think is going to be revealed at the Sony presentation, I don't think there's a bigger surprise than what happened last year with these Beatle movies. I think if there is a headline grabbing moment, it won't come from footage of the Social Reckoning, if we get to see any. It's going to be anything that's revealed from The Legend of Zelda. There's a massive, massive fan community behind that. What would you notch as the big surprise from the Sony presentation this year?
Oh, Zelda, for sure. I mean, everyone's excited for Spider-Man. Everyone's definitely looking forward for it, both the 2 upcoming movies. But yeah, Chris, like you said, that one doesn't really need much by way of help or a boost. So yeah, Zelda, I think, is the one that would really set social media on fire, like within 10 seconds of any announcements that take place.
Exactly. Agreed.
Now let's move forward to the Warner Brothers presentation that's taking place here tomorrow on Tuesday. Maybe a little bit of a sad occasion because there's a very high likelihood this might be the last Warner Brothers presentation. Might feel a little bit like a funeral procession if you remember that last 20th Century Fox CinemaCon outing. It was hard to enjoy it, knowing it was the last time you'd see something like this. Chris, as an exhibitor, how are you approaching this presentation from a historic studio that is very likely going to be part of another studio?
Yeah, I think, well, let's see if the deal actually gets done or not, number one.
Right, yeah, it's not over till it's over.
Right, there's still headwinds. It could still not happen. So, but if it does, I also am taking a look at this for example, I was just counting up how many films here that they have either that are produced or about to be produced or in the can and ready to talk about. And I have 29 on my list. I think that even if they become part of Paramount, that they remain, even like for the purposes of CinemaCon, remain a completely separate presentation from the Paramount. At least if I was at Paramount, that's how I would play it. It's too strong of a brand to have just wrapped up, or you don't want a 4-hour presentation. If I was them, I'd still have a Warner Brothers presentation, have a Paramount presentation.
They've sort of implied that if the deal goes through, that's more or less how they would approach things, right? They've said that they would do 15 movies a year under the Paramount banner and 15 movies a year under the Warner Brothers banner, which it looks like that might be the direction they take it. You're absolutely right. And as you mentioned, with 29 titles through the end of 2027 that we have from the Warner Brothers pipeline, there's a lot to talk about here. On your end, which one is the movie that needs the big push at this presentation? And that's a layered question because there's a number of movies on this Warner slate that need a different kind of push, but there's a lot that would benefit from a boost here.
Yeah, I think the immediacy of having Supergirl come out and wanting that to perform so the DC universe continues to have momentum going into Man of Tomorrow in July of 27. I think that's a big one. You want to give that one. It looks fun. It looks like that one is going to be a success. Sounds like they kept the budget.
And there's Clayface in between those two, right?
Yes.
Which
absolutely, yeah.
Needs a push because what is Clayface?
A very good question, Rebecca. I hope we find out what a Clayface is, but it's a comic book guy or girl. I don't know. Or clay person.
It's a good character. It's in the Batman universe more so. I'm actually excited about it. It sounds like it's going to be more of a R-rated take, a horror almost, angle take on the character. And I like that there's not one consistent there's not one feel to all these movies. All of them have separate, distinct feels. Superman has a separate feel from what even Supergirl feels like. And Clayface and the Batman, even though they're not always interconnected, have a different feel to them. So I like that it gives, something for everybody. So I'm excited about that one. I agree with Rebecca. I think that one needs some push there to have that. I think another bigger one, it's not quite the play, Digger would be one. So that one is a big swing for them.
I think so too. Now, I agree with you that because of the immediacy and type of movie that Supergirl is, you need to go all in on that. The way that they went all in on Barbie a couple years back and on Superman last year. Yes, Supergirl is that title for CinemaCon. But Digger, which we have to assume is probably going to get a play somewhere in Venice, maybe it even shows up as early as Cannes. I'm not sure it's ready. But you have to think Venice, Toronto, Telluride, it shows up somewhere in the festival scene, I would guess. That's going to help give it that promotion. But Digger is a movie we would all like to learn a little bit more about. That is Alejandro González Iñárritu with Tom Cruise in a movie that tonally we don't really know what to expect. From the teaser trailer, there's shades of the tone of Birdman behind it. Is probably the best I can give you right now. But outside of that, I expect to see a lot of Cat in the Hat because we saw a lot of that, not in terms of footage, but in terms of marketing materials and concept art. Cine LATAM, actually, in September of last year. So I fully expect them to give that a lot of room in this year's presentation. But then especially, we just got word that Dune Part 3 is going to get priority on those IMAX screens over Avenger Doomsday, when they share the same release date in mid-December. That's going to be coming off of like 2-3 weeks after the Narnia IMAX thing that is a fiasco that I don't even want to go into. And because of that, I think it's going to be important for us to get a good look at Dune Part 3. And frankly, that's the one title that I want to find out the most about, the one I'm most looking forward to checking out here. Do you guys agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I think Dune Part 3 actually is kind of set. If you've been watching any of the NCAA tournament, you have seen so much Dune Part 3 already. They were running commercials in every game, like for Dune Part 3. And then they had the new teaser as well for when they announced the 70 millimeter tickets on sale that had even more footage in it. I think it looks incredible. I think with 3 weeks locked, that's the big debate of the year. Can both of these movies, Avengers Doomsday and Dune survive, and Dune Part 3 survive on the same date? I think that they can, even though I was saying you only have so many screens. It's the holiday, and it's the one time of year where people go and see multiple movies, right? Like you have a 3 to 4 week stretch, you're going to get to see multiple movies. I think that one has, the crowd will come out to that. I anticipate a bigger opening, a better overall gross, approaching that $1 billion mark. It was at 750 on the last one. I think with the holidays, it can push it closer to that. So looking to see a lot of that, but I wonder how much they'll show of that, given they've already showed a full almost 3-minute trailer and another teaser on top of it.
What do you think is going to be the big surprise that we get to learn a lot more from this presentation?
I think from this one, I think the two biggest surprise things that you could see, I have on my list here, is that you get a real Gremlins announcement rather than just the date. You get a bigger Gremlins announcement. You get more of a Lord of the Rings Hunt for Gollum announcement, and maybe some cast members or something that they could have there. Those would be my ones that, if I'm looking out going, that's the ones that they're going to showcase that as a surprise, that haven't shot, that they're really looking forward to. Those would be my big fun announcement ones that you see something from.
How about on your end, Rebecca? What are you most looking forward to learning? I know you say Gremlins. I know you're already completely in the bag for that.
Well, unless Joe Dante's involved, that's in question for me personally. But no, Chris, I agree. I think especially, I think the Lord of the Rings, after the disastrous performance of the War of the Rohirrim, which did not really get any help in terms of marketing, I feel like that one definitely that franchise needs to convince exhibitors that it can continue to deliver, because we've seen, even going back to the Hobbit trilogy, that didn't really live up to the expectations of the original trilogy. So yeah, I would say that one. I'm looking forward to, they have a very horror heavy slate, new Evil Dead movie, a new movie from David Robert Mitchell, director of It Follows. I'm a big fan of his, Under the Silver Lake Defender. I think Lord of the Rings, of all their franchises, is the one that they really have something to prove on.
It'll be exciting to see what we learn and what we don't. I'd love to see something from the Batman Part 2, if I'm not mistaken, that is currently in production or about to go into production. So unfortunately, I don't think or expect that's going to be a big part of this presentation at all. But with a slate as big and as deep as Warner Brothers has, I don't see any reason whatsoever for them to go into the Paramount of it all. In fact, I'd be shocked if there's any reference whatsoever to that happening in this one. Now let's go over to Wednesday, where Universal and Focus Feature are going to be sharing the stage at the Coliseum once again. Another big slate here, guys. And I can tell you, in terms of movies that don't need a push, that everyone knows is coming, we've got Disclosure Day in June, Minions and Monsters in July, The Odyssey in July. It's going to be a massive movie. Forgotten Island coming out in September. That's going to be screening earlier that day. So this is a position for Universal where I think their big bets already have a lot of exhibition behind them. Having that in mind, Chris, what do you think needs that big push at this CinemaCon presentation for Universal and Focus Features?
I've got one that's kind of off the radar, but I hear screened recently and screened like gangbusters, is Father-in-Law. I think will be their big Thanksgiving title, and I hear played wonderfully.
I don't know, man. I think that franchise doesn't seem exciting to me. It's been a decade since the last one came out. I'm looking at the Thanksgiving slate this year after the Thanksgiving slates we've had for the last 2 years. I've got big questions. That's why I agree with you, Chris, not because I'm excited to see Father-in-Law, but because it's supposed to make a performance out of thin air come Thanksgiving. I think it needs to prove itself. For you, Rebecca, what's the big Universal title that really needs to step it up this year?
Same. I mean, Father-in-Law. The fact that it's been so long since the prior movies in that franchise. For me, it was never really a gigantic franchise to begin with compared to some of Universal's other offerings. But I mean, it does make me definitely intrigued to hear that this has been screening well. They're definitely going for an optimistic Thanksgiving release. So I'm curious on that one. Aside from that, I mean, I'm curious if we're going to get any announcements as to the continuation of the Marioverse, which obviously continues to do well at the box office. We wouldn't hear anything specific, but I'm sure they're cooking something up.
Yeah, I think it's coming off of the momentum of really reinvigorating that 2026 box office with the biggest opening weekend of the year. I would even go one further here. I would love to learn a little bit more on that horror slate they've got planned for Q4 and for next year. Werewolf, the focus title from Robert Eggers. Nosferatu performed in a way that I would have never imagined a Robert Eggers movie doing at the multiplex. Or really, I think one of the best benchmarks, I think, for focus features when we talk about a wide release, which hasn't always worked for the specialty division. So I would love to learn a little bit more there. And if it's something we can even come to expect, a performance that big from a Robert Eggers classic horror remake coming around Christmas time, right? I'm not too sure about that. Would love to learn more. Beyond that, we've seen Universal swing and miss with The Exorcist very recently. It wasn't that long ago when we were promised a new Exorcist trilogy with David Gordon Green, and that came and went after the first one. I mean, it was such a whiff that they just scrapped the whole thing, and now we've got another stab at it. I think there needs to be some convincing here because, as we were saying earlier, the horror fan base is very rabid, and they won't take easy outs as an answer. I think there's something to prove here. And since it's coming out in March of next year, this is kind of when you start it.
I mean, there's the opportunity there because the horror community, I mean, Mike Flanagan is beloved, I think, rightly so. The series adaptations, the limited series that he's done on Netflix I think they're amazing. They're very, very well regarded. So I think it's another sort of Zach Krager Resident Evil situation of this sort of unique voice in film who's really created a brand for themselves, and how do they sort of port that over to an established franchise? Because when he's adapted stuff before, a lot has changed, and I'm not sure to what extent he's going to be given the freedom to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I think that's a big question. And then ultimately what I'd like to see, I think what a nice surprise for all of us attending CinemaCon is going to be, is if we get the opportunity to see Steven Spielberg share a stage with Christopher Nolan for the Universal presentation. They've got releases coming out in June and July. I think that'd be a nice moment, seeing two living legends of this medium share the stage. Chris, what would be the bright spot or surprise on your end from a Universal presentation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theme of Universal, as I look down the list here, is that they're either relaunching or having new franchise starts for a lot of these things. So you mentioned The Exorcist, we talked about Father-in-Law, but there's also Miami Vice that they have coming in August of 27. They've also got The Mummy that is going to be coming. That'd be nice to see a cast announcement, even though they've confirmed a lot of it, but see the cast and before they go to start shoot. The Fast Forever franchise, or the Fast and Furious franchise, is coming back again. And the biggest one, I was going to say, of all, might be the biggest. Shrek 5 could be the biggest movie that we see all next year. Is massive for them.
It's a Gen Z icon. Don't ask me how Shrek ended up being a Gen Z icon.
That franchise has had legs for days. Yeah, and it's definitely that one. And I think that and Zelda for me are sort of the two franchise launches slash relaunches that I think would most set the internet on fire, as it were.
And now let's move on to the Amazon MGM presentation. I think a big question mark, because last year I was very interested in going in to see what the first theatrical slate was going to be from this company as a combined entity. They opened with Project Hail Mary. They delivered with Project Hail Mary earlier this year. And I hate to say it, this is like the sports business. What have you done for me lately? Thank you for Project Hail Mary. What else you got? And I think that's going to be the big question that exhibitors are going to be asking of Amazon MGM, because they know they can deliver. They know they can overperform. From the schedule here, I can tell you the movies that I would love to find out more about. I'm not sure if anything needs a big push or not. I would love to find out more about I Play Rocky coming out in November. Of course I would. And the Michael B. Jordan Thomas Crown Affair in March of next year. That's going to be before the next CinemaCon presentation. I would love to find out more about Thomas Crown's remake. And what I expect to be the big sort of surprise announcement here is a little bit more information on Spaceballs 2 and Heat 2. I think it's way too early to talk about Bond, the next James Bond movie. I don't think that's going to be part of this. But you've got Heat 2 pretty much packed up and ready to go. And you've got Spaceballs 2 and a lot of excitement around that. I think you have to give the fans a little bit in this presentation from it. Chris, on your end, what do you expect from this presentation? And do you think there's a title here that does need that push from Amazon MGM?
Yeah, I'm excited about their slate. I think they've got a good one. It's taken them some time to ramp up, but I think now that they're ramped up and everything that they have going and will have going, it's exciting. It's exciting to see Project Hail Mary just kick off so well. I know Sheep Detectives is very good, and I think Masters of the Universe, which I didn't even have on here, could surprise, but those are going to be almost immediate releases after the presentation, so I don't think a whole lot of time will be spent on them. But with that, I agree. Spaceballs 2 is the big one for next year, along with Thomas Crown Affair. But I hope we see something great from that. Really see a nice kickoff. I think, again, comedy. I said it for the Universal one with Fokker in Law. I went back as we were talking. Fokker in Law, or the Fokker series, has basically made about $1 billion in box office.
How? I'm shocked by this. That's great. I understand. Make another one, but oh my God.
Yeah. The sequel, the original, I think, made $350. The sequel made $522 million globally. I think the next two after that were about $500 million globally. So it's $1 billion franchise. But that's what we've been missing from theaters. We don't have the comedy. I think that getting those massive comedy grosses off streaming, off Netflix, and back into theaters, I think something like Spaceballs 2 is another one that just brings that back. We just showed it at Flix. We had what we call a fan fest for it in January, sold thousands and thousands of tickets for it. So there is a nostalgic audience out there for it. I think tying it in and placing it right smack in the middle of the Star Wars 50th release and Star Wars Starfighter is a bold move on their part, and will pick up a lot of free marketing by just having it in between those two. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move. Rebecca, on your end, is there a title here from Amazon MGM that needs to sort of prove itself right now with audiences? And on a personal basis, what are you most looking forward to hearing about?
I'm definitely curious on How to Rob a Bank, coming out this September from David Leitch, obviously Atomic Blonde and Bullet Train. I'm curious about, those sort of films that fill in the gaps on the schedule, as it were, sort of the way Project Hail Mary has done to really revitalize Q1.
Yeah, I think a lot here from the Amazon MGM presentation to look at, to get excited about. Obviously, there's a Highlander movie that's floating around that we might be hearing a little bit more about. There's some franchises there that are just at the cusp of getting big announcements out there. Whether or not we get them at this CinemaCon presentation, we'll find out later this week. Let's move on to Paramount, guys, a studio that is going through huge changes with Skydance now in control of everything moving forward. I think I spoke about this on our kickoff episode that went live on Thursday. I think if we hear about Paramount Warner Brothers, it'll be here. It wouldn't shock me if, and by the way, this isn't an announcement or a reveal, I don't know, but if I were to guess what a big surprise would be, I would say a Skydance executive would benefit from coming to this event and addressing exhibition directly. If you're lobbying exhibitors to get behind this deal, this is where you do it. This is how you do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to get that messaging across. Beyond that, I think they've got a great slate here. In terms of movies, I think they're going to be going big on Angry Birds 3, their big December release for the Christmas
That one
season.
definitely, I think, needs a little bit of convincing, especially given, how it's right smack dab in the middle of much more, I guess, prominent films, you would say.
It can get run over. It can get run over if it doesn't shine. And this is the opportunity to have Angry Birds shine.
It can be kind of like a SpongeBob Christmas release, basically. It can help fill in some of those gaps. We don't need it to perform amazingly well, but yeah, I'm curious on that one as well.
Well, I'm not sure that SpongeBob performed the way they might have wanted it to, right? And I think that's why you go big on something like Angry Birds 3. I think Sonic 4 is going to have a presence at this presentation. Sonic has now grown to be a staple that can perform very well at the box office. That's coming out in March of 2027. This is where you talk about it. You can show whatever you can of that movie. And beyond that, my bet would be that Street Fighter gets a nice little boost. I think this is a fan-driven title that can get a lot of folks excited. It's also maybe the title that I'm most looking forward to watching from them because I grew up with this video game when I was a kid. Chris, on your end, what's the title that needs that push? What's the dark horse going to be on this slate? And what are you most looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, I really want to see a lot from Children of Blood and Bone, which is a fantastic book series, which I think has huge potential for not only just this movie, but as a series of movies. That one I think has a lot riding on it. Has a diverse cast, has just a great fan following. And I think that one could be huge for them if they can really push that, and they've really nailed that. I think that could be huge for them. So I would expect to see a lot of focus, the cast, everybody there to really show off the first footage from that film.
Yeah, it's already getting an IMAX release, right? That was pretty much when the movie was first announced. It was leaning into the visual spectacle element. So yeah, I think just getting exhibitors in the know about potential is for the wider franchise. That one, yeah, could use a boost just as something that is new to the big screen and maybe a little bit of an unknown quantity there.
And Daniel, to your point, I think the thing to look forward to here is that they're probably the one studio that's going to announce exciting things to get exhibitors excited. So stuff that has not been announced, that's not in production, I think you get maybe a Star Trek announcement beyond just the writer or director.
There are a lot of franchises that they have the rights to that have kind of fallen by the wayside.
They've been stuck in neutral because we didn't know 2 years ago who was going to own Paramount, right? Paramount was that first acquisition target. Was it going to be Sony? Was it going to be Skydance? Skydance comes in. Skydance gets distracted with a very big side quest, which they're currently in the middle of. But to Chris's point, the one thing that Paramount needs to do this year at CinemaCon is have every exhibitor walk out of that presentation and say, I'm excited about Paramount. They need to have exhibitors walk out of that presentation and say, aren't you glad Skydance bought Paramount? They need that. Whether this deal happens or not, they need to build excitement for being the new owners in town. And they especially need it as they lobby people to get behind their case of buying Warner Brothers. So this, I would say, is probably in Paramount's history at CinemaCon and Show West, the biggest stakes, the most at stake they've ever had in a studio presentation. They need to go big. They need to impress, because if people walk out of this even slightly underwhelmed, there's not a lot of goodwill going around in the industry for the future of Skydance Paramount. They need to change minds. This is that golden opportunity. You throw everything on there. You make announcements. You bring stars. You show trailers we didn't even expect were coming. You have to go all out. And if you can bring in, as I said, maybe an influential executive from the parent company to say a couple of words, that will have an impact when you need that impact. I think this is huge. I would say everyone coming to this event, make sure to tune in for that Thursday Paramount presentation, because if it's not fireworks, it's going to fall short of what we're expecting.
To your point, not to steal from one of their own movies and a quote from one of their own movies, but they need to win the crowd. Going with the gladiator there. They have to win the crowd. They have to make big splashes. They have to impress. And as of now, as an exhibitor, I'm looking at what they've done so far since they acquired the company last August, and I see movies that have gone into production are Ebenezer. And I mean, it's not a whole lot. Jackass 5. I love Jackass. But that's a quick, dirty.
That's a budget of 2 sandwiches and a Diet Coke, maybe a couple of bottles of ibuprofen. I can put Jackass 6 in production next week with a couple buddies. That's fine. Yeah, to your point, we need something exciting from these guys. This is when you announce it.
Right. And I think they're still, when they announced Jackass, I think they just started shooting it or hadn't even shot it yet, and they're still maybe shooting it. I don't know if that's the case, but yeah, I think that's where you look to go. Where are you guys going to go is for big, exciting things for exhibitors to play in our theaters? And that's where they need to win the crowd and really show off as much as possible and then make as many big announcements as they can. I know one big splash that they could make. I don't know if they'll do this, but I do know maybe arguably the biggest movie star in the world just filmed a video for them on top of the Paramount Tower or whatnot, just filmed a massive video. And I was thinking when they bought the company, especially being Skydance, that one of the first announcements would be Top Gun 3 or a sequel to Top Gun Maverick, however you want to look at that. And nothing. I mean, Tom Cruise will probably be there for one of these presentations. I'm sure he's going to want to show off bigger for Warner Brothers. So if you've got him in town, that would be the time to really make a splash and make a big announcement for something like that.
Let's wrap up this segment by going over the Disney presentation, the last one taking place on Thursday. Because, Chris, I'm looking at the forecasting sheet that I send you guys every week in the panel. Devil Wears Prada 2. Boy, that is selling like crazy. We're talking about maybe 100 million opening weekend for the sequel?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's selling. For me, it's selling above where the first Wicked movie sold at the same time.
No, that high. Wow.
It's selling very, very high. I'm not as high as Wicked for Good was, or Wicked 2. But yeah, it is selling very high. I mean, it's above. I don't want to hype people up too much, but it's above Barbie sales at the same time. I don't think it's going to open to 160. I think there is a cap that is
right. It's going to level off, but the early buzz is there. And when we talk about this demographic, because female audiences have shown this isn't an opening weekend audience, like we saw with The Housemaid very recently, right? If the movie's any good, the fans are going to show up on opening weekend no matter what. That's what we're seeing in pre-sales. But if the movie's any good, that audience is going to show up on week 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we might be talking about one of the biggest movies of the year if they can deliver on an entertainment basis. And I think this is the one movie that Disney has up its sleeve as a dark horse, where the pre-sales are showing us a performance that's going to be very exciting. But the sky's the limit here. In terms of the movie that needs the biggest push, in my opinion, guys, I think it's entire Memorial Day weekend through July slate. Chris, on your end, what needs some pushes here?
I look at these three as, number one, I think Toy Story 5 will do just fine. I think that one has been away long enough, and the concept that they have looks good enough that I think it'll just be huge. I think Mandalorian and Grogu, I look at that one too as found money, because if anything, that was something that was going to end up as a season on Disney Plus, and now we get it on in theaters. And if we make a few $100 million off of the movie, that's found money. So I'm already happy with that one. Moana is another. Moana 2 performed very well. Wasn't quite as loved. It was one of those things for Moana. Was anybody really looking for a live action Moana, especially that quickly? I hear the movie is actually turning out well, but yeah, I think that one does need a push. And then all their stuff after that really is more, there's some 20th century stuff. I'm super excited to see what Whale Fall looks like from 20th century. I heard even before they started shooting it that, they've got a great VFX team on it. They've got great talent on it. And I just think that one could turn out really well. I love the story of that one. I don't know if you guys have seen the story of Whale Fall.
No, you got to fill us in. We're going to talk about it more when we see the footage. But in terms of hype, what can you tell us about Whale Fall?
Yeah, Whale Fall, I don't know, I probably mess up some of the details, but basically it's essentially 127 hours inside of a whale. Guy goes down and looks for his father who...
this is the Geppetto experience that you're selling.
Yes.
You're selling me Geppetto, the movie. Okay, so we've got someone swimming into a whale to rescue them. I have to see this. This sounds ridiculous. This sounds, when you said whale fall, I thought like, oh, could it be as silly as Moonfall? You remember that movie where the moon falls? This sounds even more ridiculous, Chris, and I need to see it.
Yeah, that is one that I'm most excited for personally. Just that concept is nuts. We're not going to see anything from Doomsday, I would imagine. They're going to save everything to D23. I think Hexed. I mean, I think the last couple of original Disney animated have underperformed. I think that's fair to say. That one to me could definitely benefit from a little promotion there, especially given that it's coming out in the Thanksgiving corridor up against the new Hunger Games, Fokker and Law.
I'm worried about Thanksgiving, guys. I'm very worried about Thanksgiving, and that applies to Fokker in Law. That applies to week 2 of Hunger Games.
Disney Thanksgiving releases have not, outside
Moana
of
2. Moana 2 drove us to a record Thanksgiving, and that was great. But Hexed, I'm afraid, might perform similarly to what Wish did not that long ago as an animated original. Chris, where are you tracking this Hexed title? Because I don't know much of anything about it.
Yeah, I think everything's expectations. So even just overall for Thanksgiving, we're coming off the 2 biggest ones of all time. So I'm naturally thinking, well, there's going to be a dip, just like there probably is for we're coming off of the biggest Memorial Day ever. So that's why even on Mandalorian and Grogu, my expectations are a little more in check, because anytime something's so high, I'm like, well, there's got to be somewhat of a low or a normalization incoming. But yeah, I think Hex is, anytime you get an original animation, you really need to connect it with the audience. They were able to do that on Hoppers, which, there was a little bit of worry on Hoppers with Pixar. I know that's Pixar versus Disney animation, but yeah, I just want to see something from it. I think we're going to get to see a lot from that one, because Disney usually with their presentation usually limits it to what's coming out or what's in production and ready to go. They don't really go into any big announcements. They save that for D23 for other things other than CinemaCon. So I think we're just going to be able to see that footage, and I'm excited to see what they have. Anything, like Rebecca mentioned, anything original that we can get animated wise. I love all the sequels. They bring us tons of money, but I'd love to see original things as well.
I doubt they'll devote much time to it, but I think I've heard from a lot of people the question as to what's going on with Searchlight. I think they have one movie on their slate, and it's Super Troopers 3.
There's another one. They've got Wild Horse 9 for the Martin McDonagh title. I did not sign an NDA. I saw it this week. Coming out in November, I saw it this week, and they have a lot to be excited for. And my apologies to my friends at Searchlight if I just let the cat out of the bag, but you have every right to be excited about that movie coming out in November. In fact, I would be surprised if they don't try to push that into festivals a little bit earlier. So I think with Searchlight, it's just a case of maybe a smaller pipeline of films, maybe a couple festival pickups that maybe didn't pan out last year. I know at the Academy Awards, their 2 big bets were The Testament of Anne Lee, which I believe was a pickup from a festival. And they had the Bradley Cooper movie that, maybe didn't get the right amount of buzz. And it's weird to have an Academy Award season without Searchlight having a main role there. But you know how difficult the specialty divisions are. I mean, some years you've got it all, and other years you take a couple bad bets. It's like the transfer portal in college football. It's a year-by-year basis, right?
If Disney was to announce something here, I would love to see them actually announce something. Like I said, again, they usually stick to just what they have in production or what's on the calendar and what's coming out. There's usually not an announcement, but I'd go to 20th Century and say, I would love to see what the Alien Romulus follow-up looks like and, get an announcement on that. What the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes follow-up looks like, get an announcement on that. Those are things, for the future that I'm looking forward to. But from them specifically, I will watch anything that Ridley Scott makes. So even for Dog Stars in August, I'm excited to see, because the concept on that is also very cool. It's Ridley Scott, so I will watch anything the man makes.
I'll tell you how this is going to work just because we've been to enough of these. It's going to be a 20-minute extended segment of Toy Story 5, most likely. I'd put money on that. They show us 20 minutes of Toy Story 5 or something like that. A lot of attention on Devil Wears Prada 2 and Mandalorian and Grogu. A good amount of attention on Moana. And maybe bits and bobs of Dog Stars, Whale Fall, and Hexed. Avengers is going to have a mention. I don't think there's going to be anything new revealed.
I think it needs help, but I don't know. That's a whole separate subject.
Chris, you guys are going to book it anywhere you can. I think exhibitors know what they've got with this title. I think if anything, it needs to reconnect with fans and audiences. The battle for Marvel isn't with movie theaters, it's with audiences. It's with moviegoers. That's where the next step is.
I look at this one like a lot like I did Deadpool and Wolverine. I think no matter what you have liked or not liked in the latest phase since Endgame has ended, what I do kind of know, or it's one of the reasons of bringing Endgame back in September onto screens, is that it does connect directly with Endgame, goes right from there. It has so many Easter eggs, cameos, people involved that I just think it, much like Deadpool and Wolverine, it just doesn't matter what you thought of everything else. You're going to probably go and just see it for the spectacle. When you have Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, and you have God knows who else in this thing, which I thought was a great marketing piece on theirs with all the chairs.
People will sit and watch chairs for hours.
Yeah, they got us all to sit and watch chairs for hours. So it worked. But yes, no matter what you thought of it, a lot of people were watching a lot of chairs for a lot of hours. So
that's true. Yeah, I'm probably coming at that from a place of curmudgeonliness, but
it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Before we go to our interview with Jack Powers from Irwin Seating, Chris, on your end, where do you think this year finishes in terms of domestic box office? Because I think a lot of folks are expecting between 9.4 to 9.6 billion. Something tells me you think this is going to go higher.
I do. I think we've really got it revved up. I think the momentum is there. I think the volume of film is there. You're not so beholden to when one thing stumbles and falls that you're just screwed for weeks. From really when Project Hail Mary started, really even before that, when Scream started. You can go before that when Wuthering Heights kicked off very nicely. But yeah, I think we're going to end up in the 10 billion to 10.25 billion range.
I love it. By the way, we had Michael O'Leary here on the Thursday episode of this podcast. O'Leary also thinks the 10 billion is, within striking distance. That's the goal. Moving forward, we're going to see the movies that are going to help get us there this entire week here in Las Vegas. Chris Randleman from Flix Brewhouse, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
And now, after this commercial break, we've got Jack Powers from Irwin coming and telling us all about the latest seating solutions at a cinema near you. And after that interview, we've got a special featured conversation with Sean Gamble, CEO of Cinemark and chairman of the Global Cinema Federation.
This episode of the Box Office Podcast is sponsored by Barco Cinema, the global leader in laser, trusted by exhibitors to deliver unforgettable movie-going experiences. Barco is behind two of the industry's leading technologies, Laser by Barco, powering bright, reliable cinema presentation, and HDR by Barco, the next-generation premium experience. From the booth to the screen to the moviegoer, Barco's fully integrated laser solutions unlock limitless possibilities for unlimited experiences. Learn more at barco.com/cinema. Irwin Seating has been building and installing seating solutions in schools, stadiums, concert halls, and cinemas for 119 years. So it's safe to assume they've seen a thing or two. And safer still to assume that Irwin not only has the products you need, they have the experience, knowledge, and know-how to solve whatever problem you have that needs solving, regardless of the size of your cinema or your problem. To learn more about what Irwin has learned about cinema in the last 119 years, visit irwinseating.com.
And I am joined on this special CinemaCon edition of the Box Office Podcast by Jack Powers of Irwin Seating. I'm super excited to speak to you because sitting, lounging, being comfortable, all those things, they're my favorite things to do. So I'm excited to talk with you about how that relates specifically to the movie theater experience.
Yeah, it's great to be back, Rebecca, and I completely agree. I think that's one thing when I go to the movie theaters is I want to be comfortable and I want the movie to be playing to match that energy. So if we got good seating, then I'm hoping that that can match with the same movie that you're watching. So.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about Irwin to start with? Because I know as a company, you are not just exclusively cinema oriented company.
Yeah, exactly. So, Irwin Seating, we here at Irwin, we position ourselves as human-centered seating solutions provider that's been enhancing shared spaces for nearly 120 years, from local schools to worship centers to iconic stadium and historic theaters. We offer a full-service approach, guiding clients through cost-effective design, customization, manufacturing, installation, and ongoing care, all backed by extensive expertise. So really we love the movie theater industry, but we also love the live entertainment industry, whether it be collegiate, whether it be high school, whether it be professional. We find ourselves in all of these spaces that experiences matter.
Especially fitting now when movie theaters are increasingly no longer exclusively movie theaters. You have the growth of family entertainment centers, of maybe like more boutiquey cinemas that bring elevated, like fine dining into the mix. All of these sorts of different requirements in different industries, but if it's seating, Irwin knows it.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the thing about Irwin is that we like a challenge. So if new opportunities or new ideas come to us, we say one of the first to try to react and to bring these new experiences to the fan base, because ultimately that's what we want. Is we want fans to keep coming back to the theaters, and we want happy customers for the happy owners. Definitely.
How long have you been with Irwin?
So I've been with Irwin 118 years. I'm just kidding. That's how long.
You look so good for 118
Yeah, I
plus.
appreciate that. It's been the people here keep me young. So no, only 2 years, but learning a lot here. It's been super fun to dive into the cinema industry, and especially with CinemaCon happening, it's been such a blast.
Is this your second CinemaCon, I guess? You've been.
So yes, this is my second CinemaCon. I was not there last year because I had a baby during that time. So unfortunately I missed it, but I'm back. I'm back.
I missed last year because I had COVID. So this is
Oh
the grand return
no.
for both of us.
And then they shortened the day by one day. So hopefully we can cram everything, but it's gonna be great.
Well, I mean, I know that the seating booths are always the most popular on the trade show floor just because of the comfort element.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You're standing up all day. You need somewhere to sit. Well, why not come to Irwin's booth and come chat?
Just plant yourself. So I know last time I spoke, Irwin was launching the Aura seating line. This time around, you're focusing on something called ergonomics rather than a specific product. What is ergonomics?
Ergonomics is the economics of maximizing revenue in every cinema seat. So we know that with our seating options like our Aura, we have a lot of comfort in the brand that you come to trust. But we also want to take that a little bit further. So we're bringing value to your theater. For example, our newest product offering, we've been talking about the Aura. We've designed and manufactured the seat with the operations in mind. That means that every seat that you have will be cleaned faster, multiplied by lots of seats, which is time saved, which is big savings for the owner and operating time. So we're super excited to roll this out and let people know that, yes, not only are we bringing the value and the comfort, but we're also bringing the ergonomics to really enhance your theater and to cut some time, but also to save some big money.
Mm-hmm. I mean, especially if you look at, there are more and more premium screens. It's a subject that I personally have a lot of interest in. The fact that all movies are 2 hours and 20 minutes now. There are no more 90-minute movies, so you can only squeeze a certain number of screenings into these premium auditoriums. You can't be running late throughout the day because it takes you too long to clean something because people are just animals with leaving their popcorn everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty of the Aura is when you open up that seat, there's really nothing inside of that seat for that mess to continue to be there. So guys or girls can come in, clean the area, be done in record time, and get ready for that next showing. You might even be able to squeeze in an additional showing if that's the case. But yeah, we're super happy to get that going for the customers and to let them know what kind of value Irwin can bring to their facilities.
I mean, it's one of those areas that I find really interesting about the industry. Outside of it, obviously people love the movies. I love the movies. But the industry specific stuff, it's like, how big is the footprint of the seat versus how many you can put in each auditorium? Are you doing something like a little more boutique-y? Or, I mean, I've been in a theater, it's closed now, that went through the big gigantic seats, but it was like a tiny auditorium. So your sight lines were, if you were in like this two seats in the middle, you had great sight lines. But other than that, all these little operational things that as a consumer, like, you don't really think about, but you definitely notice if they're wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was in a theater that wasn't necessarily seated by Irwin, and I had some of those same issues. And we take that into consideration. No matter your auditorium, we have a team here that's going to help build your ideal auditorium and eliminate some of those headaches that you've mentioned. So another example is our Luna chair. Not necessarily the big, comfy recliner that you've grown to know, but this Luna chair offers a little bit tighter window so that you can potentially fit more chairs inside the auditorium, which then again, we're talking about ergonomics. More chairs in an auditorium, more revenue for the theater, which makes more happy customers, more happy theater owners. So we definitely like to think about the issues before we start considering what to give. And that's what we pride ourselves here at Irwin, is we're thought leaders. So you can trust us to make the right decision for you.
I think yesterday, before we are speaking, the Dune Part 3 70mm tickets went on sale. And of course, I, like 10 minutes after I get the email, they're sold out. I mean, so many of those premium experiences get sold out. And if you're able to fit, 3, 4, 5 more seats in there, from a selfish standpoint, that might be the difference between me getting in there or not. So
That's a great point. And I love what they're doing too, is they're not coming out with that movie until December. Yeah, I'm seeing commercials now. And I think that's great for the industry to continue to build that hype, especially around these bigger, let's say, sporting events where you're seeing these movies trickled in. And you might not see it till December, but it's getting you excited to get back to the movies and you can kind of plan ahead.
And speaking of CinemaCon, we're all gonna be able to get some of that excitement. Are there any franchises or films or anything in particular that you're excited about seeing?
We're super excited about these summer blockbuster hits that are coming up. I'm super excited to see Michael. I love Michael Jackson and the way his music makes me feel. I can't imagine that movie would be any different. So I'm super excited about that. But we want to make the experience for the moviegoers the greatest it can be. So when the summertime comes, if it's really hot outside, come to the theater. You got good seating to sit in, probably AC in there. Watch the movies you want to see.
And once it gets cold, maybe you want a heated recliner for one of those movies that are like 3 hours long. When the Odyssey comes out, maybe you need something with a charging port in there.
We are here to provide experience all throughout the year. So whether it's a summer blockbuster, a fall blockbuster, or a mom and pop shop that you're seeing an indie film, we've got the stuff that you want.
Aside from like specific films, looking at more general, the way the industry is evolving, what kind of excites you about the industry, where it's going forward in a macro level in terms of like providing comfort and elevated experiences for moviegoers?
Yeah, so I really feel that the cinema industry is evolving. And a couple months ago, I was in Texas for the Dine-In Cinema Summit, which was a great collection of like-minded individuals who work in food and beverage, who work in seating, who work in sound or projection. And that was really my first go at this experience. And so
I've heard it's really great.
it's super great. I mean, the people, we all connect in different ways where it all ties into the movie going experience. And so seeing the headaches that some of these theater owners have, it's really eye opening because everyone's got an issue, but everyone has a way to resolve it. And I really think that if we continue to build a strong community like the people that we see in Texas at the Dine-In, that the movie theater going experience will only continue to get stronger. And with streaming, being a big platform nowadays, everyone's been a really big advocate to get back out to the theater. And for me, I'm a big community person. And so with us being in the community, I think that that's where Irwin can really stand out, is that we're here in the community. We're here to provide the theaters with the best experiences that they can get. And we're excited to see where the theater going experience evolves to. You mentioned the food and beverage coming out. Such a great idea. I mean, you're going out to have an experience, not only to watch a movie, but also have maybe a dinner date with your loved ones or your family. And it's such a great thing to experience. And we can't wait to see what else comes with that.
Maybe you need like a seat with a call button, or you need a seat with that swinging table. Just so many little different things. Like you're seeing more interest in variety even within the theaters. Like within one auditorium, you can have the little like pod love seat situations for date nights, and then you can have the more like VIP cushy stuff, and then you can have something that's more standard. Like really leaning into the eventizing of these cinema experiences, because like especially Gen Z viewers. I know there was like people were really freaked out for a while. Like Gen Z just loves playing with their video games and streaming. They want to come to the movie theater. They really love it, but they want that experience. They don't just, they can push play themselves at home.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. We want to get people out there and we don't want them to have that timidness. But I think that there was a great quote. So for that support to come back to the theater owners, I think is super positive. With the movie Project Hail Mary, Ryan Gosling had a great point of view, and he mentioned to the theater owners, it's not your job to keep the theaters open. It's our job to make things that make it worth coming out. And really, I thought that was super powerful, because I feel like here at Irwin, we're the same, or we have a very similar mindset. Create an experience for the patron that will get them to continue to come and enjoy their favorite movies in the theaters that they want to go to. And I feel like our portfolio has exactly that. So the state of the cinema, I feel like, is getting stronger. And the more people can back the theaters up, I think the stronger the community will get.
And so many moving parts. You have Ergonomics to help you kind of balance everything and look at all the different factors and decide what makes sense for you.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, we're always open to new thoughts, new ideas. So we mentioned that we're thought leaders. So if there's ever that new idea to really turn the industry, we're all ears, because we want to continue to help those theater owners create something or create a new experience that maybe has never been done before. And with that Dine in Cinema Summit, there has been so many great ideas and thoughts that come through. And with CinemaCon now, it's how can we continue to build off that momentum, and what can we bring forward for the future?
0G seats for the 50th anniversary of Project Hail Mary when that
Oh, that would be
screens.
great. Maybe there's like a magnet that makes us float or something like that, so you
Yeah.
get that real no gravity. Yeah, I'm liking your ideas here.
Yeah. I won't even charge you for that one. I'll just
Okay, great. Yeah, I think you had some great ideas last time too. There might be something in production, Rebecca. You just got to come to our booth.
Before we sign off, remind me of the booth number at
Yeah,
CinemaCon?
so come check us out at booth 203J, where we'll showcase our Ergonomics. And if you'd like more information on that, go to irwinseating.com and check out the cinema page on our website. Learn more
Any
information.
kooky ideas, send them your way.
Exactly, yeah. Please send it to Jack Powers at irwinseating.com. I would love to hear your guys' great ideas.
Jack, it's been great to speak with you, and I'll see you next week.
CubeWire is a self-service single-window system for global theatrical distribution. CubeWire's electronic delivery network now spans more than 1,000 theaters domestically and includes 15 of the largest theater chains in the US. With a simple but comprehensive user interface, distributors can manage their digital cinema assets, assign territorial rights for their content, and have their digital cinema packages and key delivery messages delivered to movie theaters across the world. Theaters can manage their own digital cinema device details and access their universal inbox on the CubeWire service as well. To learn more about CubeWire services, technology, and pricing, visit www.cubewire.com.
We are here with Sean and Gamble, the chairman of the Global Cinema Federation and also the CEO of Cinemark, one of the top global circuits here on the exhibition side. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel. I really appreciate being on the program.
Well, let's talk about some of these topics that we have ahead of us, starting with the work that you do over at the GCF. If you could give us a quick update on what some of the big priorities are for you guys coming into 2026.
Sure thing. Well, first, as a reminder, the Global Cinema Federation includes the world's top 12 exhibition companies and 2 leading industry bodies with support from 75 exhibitors and 29 associations around the globe. Collectively, our members account for around 65 to 70% of worldwide box office, and we have the shared aim of supporting a healthy global cinema industry through the analysis, education, advocacy, and the advancement of common interests with a unified voice that we do. In the current environment, we're largely focused on performing research, evaluating data, and engaging with consumers, studios, and the creative community to promote solutions that increase theatrical moviegoing. Doing so includes working actively with our global trade organizations, such as Cinema United and Unique, to further advance the exhibition narrative via public relations efforts, as well as engage with key stakeholders on varied industry issues and opportunities. And we just shared the key findings from our most recent annual global consumer research study that I would encourage everybody to explore.
Looking forward to checking those out in detail. And of course, if we look at the global cinema industry right now, we've now had 3 consecutive years past the $30 billion mark in worldwide box office. My next question to you, Sean, is what do we need in order to break through to that next level?
Overall, we remain really pleased with the sustained levels of enthusiasm consumers maintain for theatrical moviegoing and the high levels of value they derive from global cinema experiences. 70% of respondents in our recent GCF consumer survey indicated that there's a movie they're excited to see this year, which is up 4 percentage points from last year. Our study also found that moviegoing frequency of audiences under 25 is considerably up over the past 6 months, which also echoes the recent findings of NRG's analysis by age group. That said, based on our research, some of the primary headwinds to cracking through to that next level that you asked include the volume of movies being released, general awareness of what's in theaters, and windows. While we continue to see positive progress in volume recovery, the number of wide releases still hasn't fully recovered since the pandemic and the strikes in Hollywood a couple of years ago, with audiences craving more action and adventure, comedy, and romance options. Also, a growing fragmentation of consumer activities and in-home media consumption has increased the complexity of effectively reaching consumers through marketing campaigns, which is something we're working with the studios to try to crack. And it's also becoming apparent that the highly reduced theatrical windows have created an adverse impact on the number of movies consumers are electing to watch in theaters each year. So these are all issues that we're discussing and working on figuring out prospective solutions with our studio partners to try to unlock that next level of opportunity for the industry that you referenced.
Now, one of those studio partners is currently up in the air in terms of what exactly will happen to them come next year. I am, of course, talking about the Warner Brothers acquisition, which is a concern on a global level. It's impacting jobs not only in Hollywood, not only here in the US, but in our industry worldwide. From your perspective, not only leading a multinational circuit, but also being the chairperson of the Global Cinema Federation, what are your main concerns about the impacts of further studio consolidation?
Well, great question. First, I would say that Warner Brothers has been an amazing partner for theatrical exhibition for decades. They have an incredible team led by Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi, and Jeff Goldstein, and they just had a record-breaking year in 2025, which I'm sure you know. So, our most immediate concern regarding that deal is just the legacy of Warner Brothers and the strong partnership they provide our industry, making sure those live on, including the many positive benefits they provide exhibitors, creatives, consumers, and the local economies that depend on healthy theaters in their community. As it pertains to studio consolidation in general, any transaction that yields sustained or increased investments in the quality, scale, and output of films getting released into theaters each year, along with comprehensive marketing campaigns and robust exclusive theatrical windows, would be viewed positively by our industry. On the contrary, a transaction that leads to less film output, shorter windows, and weaker marketing campaigns would be detrimental to the theatrical ecosystem that relies on a strong and vibrant moviegoing business.
I think that's at the core of the conversation, right? It's not really who owns a studio, it's how many movies that studio is putting out, how long that window is, and how much marketing support that's going to go into a theatrical campaign. Now, part of this, of course, is what we talked about at CinemaCon last year. And this is something that I really loved from CinemaCon 2025. It seemed that the industry came together and in a unified voice said, we need a 45-day minimum theatrical exclusivity window. Today, do you believe we are closer to seeing that benchmark across every studio or a little bit further?
In 2025, the average domestic, I'm talking domestic now versus global, a domestic wide release window dropped to 34 days. And we've now started seeing the adverse impact of too many films being released with highly reduced windows. At the same time, Disney, which is consistently the top performing studio in the business, has maintained a 60-plus day window for the majority of their films. And a growing number of filmmakers, in addition to longstanding supporters like Christopher Nolan, Tom Cruise, and Jim Cameron, are advocating for longer windows. We all heard Sean Baker's impassioned speech at the Academy Awards last year. And recently, Margot Robbie and Emerald Fennell were adamant about releasing Wuthering Heights in theaters, turning down streaming offers. So while a more flexible window structure can provide a certain degree of benefits to both studios and exhibitors, based on the best of data available, 45 days appears to continue to represent the best balance for the majority of films to fully preserve and capture the value of theatrical exhibition without suboptimizing performance and creating confusion.
Yeah, I really agree that that is going to be the key moving forward, especially with all the changes here that we continue to see in the industry. And Sean, I know you've got experience on the studio side, you've got experience obviously on the exhibition side. And if we look back at the 2020s, I think it's going to be maybe one of the most momentous and maybe topsy-turvy decades this business has ever seen. We started the decade with you as CFO of a major circuit during, let's call it an extinction event. We could have maybe look at it as that way, that we all successfully got out of. We're halfway through the decade. How do you think we end up in 2030? How does this industry look by the time we hit the next decade?
And it's a great question. And I'd say, again, that we continue to be highly encouraged by enduring consumer interest in the kind of larger than life theatrical experiences that are created in cinema around the world. And our industry continues to pump billions of dollars into enhancing and enriching those experiences every year. So I think we're just going to continue to see that improve over the next 4 to 5 years. Based on current trends and growing consumer demand, I expect we'll continue to see a further expansion of enhanced formats and amenities, including premium large format screens, luxury and motion seating concepts, new and improved sight and sound technologies. I'd also anticipate a further rollout of more varied and enhanced food, beverage, and merchandise concepts that have been resonating exceptionally well with audiences. They also add to the excitement of coming to the cinema, as well as drive increased consumption, which is fantastic. I'd also expect that we'll continue to see additional growth in event cinema. There's been so much progress made with non-traditional films and content and growing interest by audiences to see that kind of product in cinemas. And I think we're going to continue to see that expand over the next 4 to 5 years. So obviously, certain things that we need to continue to discuss as an industry regarding the overall health, things that kind of put some risk to that. But there are so many things that are opportunities and that are encouraging about the future of this industry if we can get it right. And just really looking forward to the next 4 to 5 years and further growth.
Well, it's been a successful comeback so far for our industry, thanks to executives and leaders like yourself. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Box Office Podcast.
Thanks again for having me, Daniel. Really appreciate it.